And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us. And one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it. And that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Hello, Foil Fanatics, and welcome back to another new episode of Tinfoil Tells. Tonight I'm going to be joined by my guest, Leslie. Leslie mentioned they had some experience with possible ghosts showing up at a photo shoot and also a possible Bigfoot encounter. Before we jump into conversation with Leslie, if you'd like to be on an episode of Tinfoil Tells, you can send an email to tinfoiltellspodcast@gmail.com, and we'll get you scheduled for a future episode. I've recently released a book called Shadows of Cedarville. If you haven't checked it out yet, I do recommend doing that. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and just search for Shadows of Cedarville, and you'll find it on there, I'm sure. If you'd like to help the podcast, you can share it around. It's the best way to get the word out there. You can find us on social media, on Facebook usually more than anything, but we are on the other ones as well. But we're going to go ahead now and bring Leslie on, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'd like to take this time to welcome my guest tonight, Leslie. Thanks for coming on here and talking with me.
No problem. I'm like I said, I became a fan of your podcast, and I'm just grateful to be part of it.
It's awesome. Glad someone's out there listening. But
I mean, I'm into the supernatural stuff, so
yeah. Where are you from?
I'm from Florida, actually. So
that's where my dad was from. I still got most of my dad's side of my family lived down in Fort Myers area.
That's I'm from the central Tampa area. I lived there for most of my life until a couple of years ago.
Got too tired of all the hurricanes?
Just life put me in this direction. I'm living in Maine now, and yeah, it's just the way life happens. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. What transpires down in Florida that made you want to reach out to talk with me?
Well, I have a couple of stories. I am known as a photographer, and I have a couple of pictures that I have proof to show that what I'm talking about, not just making up stories. But I think it was about 2011 November, sometime in that area. I decided to shoot with one of the girls that I met at the local goth club called The Castle. I'll just use her first name. Her name is Gina. And she was a little goth girl and did she's part of the vampire, culture up there. And we decided that we were going to go shoot in a graveyard. Not just a graveyard, but apparently behind the graveyard, they have like the coffins. I guess they have them built, or they're being made ready to bury people in or whatever. I'm not sure how she even knew about it. So we went to the cemetery, and then we walked into this wood behind it a little bit. And then there was this area with all these coffins that were just laid out, I guess, being, prepared, or leftovers or whatever. And she's dressed up in her vampire, attire. She wanted to be like a vampire, like she's coming out of the coffins and whatever, like she's gonna have blood. And now this is in the middle of the afternoon, so not at nighttime. And we're taking some pictures, trying to get the settings for the camera, this and that. it's Florida, the Sunshine State, the middle of the afternoon. I have her sitting on the coffin, and she doing her vampire look, whatever. And I take a couple pictures of her in her pose, but in two of the pictures, you can see like this white mist, or like someone put like a sheet that you can see right through it, and it's really weird because literally it's just me pointing the camera at her, and there's nothing in between us. I didn't really realize this. I was looking at the pictures, and I was just like, what is this? I don't know what happened. I don't know if she was doing some kind of spell or doing anything like that to kind of mess with the spirits, but it's in the middle of broad daylight, and it looks like there's some kind of misty figure, or it didn't really have a form. It just looks like it was just a puff of smoke or white. I don't know how to really explain it. It was just there, and it was in the middle of the day, which is also really weird because they say supernatural energy is more potent at nighttime with moon or whatever it is that's supposed to cause it. But this is 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Yes, we are in the graveyard. Yes, she's laying in a coffin or whatever, but just having a picture of like some kind of spirit or something there were disturbing it. And at the time, it didn't make me feel like I was in danger or anything bad was gonna happen, anything ominous or whatever. It's just weird that it happened, and I don't know how to explain it. And literally to this day, I don't know what it was, but something there was letting us know that they were there. I guess it's the best way to say it.
I'm always hesitant when it comes to photos just because there's all sorts of different things that it could be. Like you mentioned smoke, and obviously if you weren't smoking, it wouldn't be smoke. But I've seen pictures that people have posted quite a bit, and I was like, maybe it's a hair, maybe it's just a reflection, like a lens flare or something. So when it comes to photos and everything, I'm always a little bit apprehensive to just come out and say, oh, that's a ghost. But I'm also more skeptical about a lot of things in general. And I think you have to be when you're starting to look into this sort of field, just because there's so many things that can be ruled out from being supernatural with just doing a little bit of research. But you mentioned her being into this vampire thing. Do you know any more about that? Because that's actually something that I've been curious about, is these vampire cult vibe things.
Well, I can go into that. I won't drop any names of the people, but there's a club in the Tampa, Florida. It's really known. It's called The Castle. It's been there, I think, since the mid-'90s. And from what I understand about the vampire culture, what it is, I was never really part of it, but I was part of the crowd that was. I was part of that crowd. I was more of like the outsider looking in, so to speak. And vampire, they supposedly drink blood, but it's not like, in the movies where they go and start sucking on a person's neck and draining their blood. It's some kind of blood that they put into like a wine, so it's like little droplets, and it's just like a ceremonial thing. It's like they're sharing their essence with, the members of their different groups or families. Sometimes it's for like a sexual thrill. Sometimes it's just for, just them, sharing a camaraderie. There's supposedly like the energy vampires. And I do know that it's not just, hey, I want to give you my blood. In order for you to do that and for them to accept it, they have to get it tested to make sure there's no like STDs, anything that's, biological or anything that can hurt, that can be harmful to people that partake in a certain ritual of, a blood drinking or something like that. So it's not just, they do it. Some people are part of the vampire, community as like a fetish. Some are just kind of into like the lifestyle, and Yeah, it's all weird. I don't really know a lot about it. I just know that it was big there. I've met. Do you ever remember the old show called Real House or whatever?
Yeah.
And they had all the different alternative people. They had like the vampire guy, the dude that just like slept with the hooks in him. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was on Sci-Fi in the early 2000s, a long time ago.
It was
But
like a spin-off wannabe of like the real world from MTV or something. I think those with like those
yeah,
different types of people.
yeah, and I remember meeting the vampire guy that was in that show. I met him in real life at one of these, just hanging out at one of these vampire, community uh sponsored events or whatever, and hung out with them at the club and then at the after party, whatever. He was a very interesting dude. I mean, he wasn't weird. He wasn't mean. Okay, I would say he is weird, but but a good weird. He wasn't mean. He was when he talked to you, he actually like looked at you in the face, stuff like that. He just had what his beliefs that he believed in. If that makes any sense. I forgot the man's name, but he was pretty cool. He was, like I said, very standoffish a little bit, not just because I think he just observed people in the room. But if you talk to him, he will talk to you. And
That's kind of how I am.
I'm sorry.
That's kind of how I am. I'm not a very outgoing person. Weirdly enough, I host a podcast, talk to people. But you get me in a room full of people, I'm gonna be the one standing back observing everyone because that's just how I am.
Yeah, no, and the whole experience with that was nice. Then they had all the dungeon parties and stuff that I was able to, partake in being a photographer and videographer for. I was in my early 20s. I was still just kind of messing around or whatever. So I had adventures and stuff. It was a very weird thing, but I kind of got into some of it, and we're gonna get into the whole BDSM stuff, but that's not what it is about. I do want to get back to when I was telling you about my whole time doing a photo shoot and supposed spirit showing up in my photo.
Mhm.
That same day, we were supposed to meet up with another girl that I met at the castle, the golf club, and we're gonna do stuff around like sunset in the same area. And so when we met up with her, we went back to the same location hours later. And the weirdest thing is that we're in this time we're actually shooting in the cemetery, not where all the coffins are or anything. So we're actually in the actual cemetery. And I was going through the pictures of to find the one I was telling you about. I found it today, and then I saw pictures of what happened later. All of a sudden, just cat just showed up in the middle of the cemetery and was really attracted to the two young ladies I was working with. That were my models. I don't know. We don't know where the cat came from. We know nothing about it. It wasn't a black cat, if I remember correctly. It was like, yeah, it looked like she had like dark gray fur with some stripes. The cat was nice. Like, I was able to pet it. It didn't act weird, but it just showed up and then, was showing love to the two models that I was working with, and they wanted to take some pictures with it. I was able to kind of capture some just for, just to capture it. And then once they pet it and everything, the cat got attention, and then it ran off. We don't know what happened to it. It just, something was weird about it. It was just odd. I wouldn't say that it was supernatural. It's just an odd coincidence that we're in a graveyard, towards nighttime, and this cat just shows up randomly.
Yeah. Was it black?
Like I said, I think it was like a dark gray. It wasn't a completely black cat. It was, it had some color to it. It was a big cat too. Like, so obviously some kind of barn cat or something, and it was just, for whatever reason, attracted to the girls that I was working with that are dressed up as witches or goth girls or whatever it is you want to say. It was odd, and
Yeah.
I mean, it was really odd, but it happened. So And I also had another incident that happened during a photo shoot, but this time we were really pushing our luck, so to speak. Now, I was working with a totally different young lady, and we're in another part of town, and it was, I want to say, maybe closer to midnight, just because she wanted to be like a witch and put the whole pentagram and some candles and wanted it to be around midnight or whatever to, kind of go with the aesthetics of, being a witch and, summoning dark magic, black magic, whatever. Now, in order for us to do this, when we went to the cemetery, I was like, look, I want to be respectful because, of what happened the previous story. So we bought some roses and we kind of went to all the gravestones that are around this big gazebo in the middle of the cemetery so she can, we can pay respects to them, so it's not like we're going to be disrespectful and have angry spirits or whatever. And just be nice. So we dropped some roses on all the tombstones that are around the gazebo, set the gazebo up. We had, I think, about over 100 different like little candles that we're gonna light and kind of use that as the lighting for the picture because it was complete dark out and there were no lights.
Yeah.
And she wanted to kind of draw a pentagram, but I was like, let's not kind of do that. How about we arrange the candles to kind of look like that, Because I'm like, when it comes, I do believe in that there's things out there that we can't explain, ghosts, whatever. I know you say you're more of a skeptic. I'm not afraid of this stuff, but I also don't like to go into situations and outright provoke it, so to speak, if that makes sense.
No, it does. When I say I'm a skeptic, I'm not trying to say that I don't believe in the supernatural. I'm skeptical of what a lot of people think is supernatural, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I know you're not saying you're not saying that you don't believe. You just, be like, hey, there's a lot of things happen and that can be explained and not just, this thing that's uncommon to happen is not supernatural.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And going back into the story, so we set up these candles and we light them all like, I don't know, there's a lot of them, right? And as I'm sitting there, I pull out my camera. She's like in this like, her feet are crossed. She's doing like, she's summoning something, like a typical witch pose that you see in movies, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. And then I get the aesthetics. Like she looks really good. The flames and the light from the flames with candles, it's like really hitting her skin. She has on like the dark makeup. Her hair good. She's like just kind of looking like really evil, like a really evil bitch. Like she's gonna pull a spell to, for like revenge or something. So we get it all lined up. I get the settings on my camera corrected. And then, of course, as soon as I'm about to take the first picture, there a gust of wind comes out of nowhere and just kind of blows out a couple of candles. So I managed to get like one or two pictures that were kind of like half lit up or whatever, so to speak. I was like, all right, so wind comes, whatever. We're in Florida, wind, gusts, it's kind of whatever. So we do it all again, right? Set up the candles, light them all again, get her back in the pose she had. And then I'm pulling up the camera, about to hit the shutter. Then all of a sudden, more powerful gust of wind comes and blows all the candles out. Now, like I said before, as I was saying before, I don't like to mess with, I don't like to provoke things. So I was like, we are not going to do this particular kind of shot. Powers that be are telling us that they were cool with us doing the pictures by the tombstones, whatever, but they don't want us doing this. So I'm not trying to provoke them. I'm not trying to, you know what I mean? We're good right now, but, it just, I'm not trying to mess with anymore. I'm not doing this. Not because I was scared, but I was just like, you know what? Something's telling me this to be like, hey, kind of, we allowed you to do this, this, and this, but we don't want you to do this.
No, that makes sense. I'm definitely not one that wants to provoke anything, and I get upset when my children try and do little seances in the basement a couple weeks ago.
Oh, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, they got reamed a new one for that one. I was like, you guys don't know
Yeah.
what you're doing, and you don't even know what you're going to open up and what you're going to be bringing in.
Now, during this whole thing, by this time, the model I'm working with, she's getting a little spooked too. And then she claims we used my car. She claims she saw things around my car, and we go over there, and of course there's little like handprints on my car and stuff. Now, I do know that likely she didn't see anything. Maybe I think she just got like anxious and would like start to make her mind wander, because I do know when it comes to handprints on your car and stuff, they're scientifically explained as something of like, even my hands, which are, decent sized man hands, are on the back of my car, but the oil leaves behind, and then like dust hits it, it makes them look like they're smaller kid hands. I do know that that's something that happens. I don't know how to explain it outright, but I didn't really believe that there was little ghost kids, trying to push my car or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's I honestly think that is a very common ghost story that you hear, because I know there's some from around here too. Like if you go towards this one area and they claim a bus crashed years ago and they died and then drowned or something like that. But if you go to the bridge, the kids will try and push you across the bridge, and you'll see you have dust on your car. You'll find little handprints. I've heard stories like that from here. I've heard stories like that. I've looked online and seen stuff that other towns and other states have the same type of story. Not as much the bus drowning, but the same little things like little kids' hands will be on your vehicle.
Yeah, and like there's a podcast that I was listening to, and she kind of went through the whole thing, explained the whole scientific way of how it happened, and it's just just like there's the what they call like a spook hill with your car, as instead of like going down the hill, being pushed up the hill, so to speak. And it just the way we look at it, whatever, the ground is not level. It's just like an optical illusion, basically what it is. I know they have one in Florida. It's called Spook Hill. It's kind of cool, but when you look at it, whatever, that's just all it is. It's just it's hills or whatever you don't see. So
Yeah. I've seen videos how they've debunked that, and it is like you said, it's an optical illusion, because I've seen I forget what this was. I feel like it was power line antennas, and the way they look is like they were going uphill, and like you could see the car and it was being pushed uphill, but it was just like an optical illusion. It's strange how that works, but that's how I think it might have been on like a Mythbusters or something at one point.
yeah, it could have probably been. There's a thing called pareidolia. You ever heard that word?
Yeah, I've mentioned that quite a bit here in the last few episodes. I was on someone else's podcast last week, and I brought it up too. A lot of people within the cryptid community, I think, they see these supposed creatures, and I struggle seeing anything besides tree leaves or stumps or anything else. So I think everyone's got like pareidolia or something.
Yeah, it's just one of the things that if you want to see, you'll see. Just like sometimes you'll see like weird dots or whatever, especially like trail cams, stuff like that I've picked up, and it's like, could it be something, or could it just be dust particles from the wind blowing and it sets off the the trail cam, whatever. Yeah, whatever. I've seen things that I'm like, that's a little weird. I'm just like, it could be, can't be, kind of thing. And that's just, I'm trying to. There's a couple other stories that like weird things happen. Like I said, I'm from Florida, and I don't know if my brothers and his friend were playing a joke on me, but I do remember there was an account that we think we found a swamp ape. We were camping. I probably was like 14 or 15 at the time, and I was with one of my friends, and then my oldest brother and his friend at the time. And we were fishing. It's probably, I think it was around like 10:30 at night. And we were fishing. And then all of a sudden we started hearing like a big splashing around or whatever. And then we heard like a kind of like a weird like screaming growling sound. And then it looked like a tree fell into the water like maybe 20, 30 feet from us. And all of a sudden, like my brother and his friend were like, be like, oh shit, the salt paper, there's something there. And they started running. Now I think back at it, my brother is always trying to be a prankster, always trying to be funny. And I kind of believed him at the moment, but I think they were pulling a fast one on me, but I don't know. It's just one of those things because there has been several videos of that location that I was at of supposed swamp ape sighting. So I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
he was. So it's just one of those things. I think he was making a joke, but I don't know. There's been other unconfirmed or confirmed reports of supposed the swamp ape or Bigfoot of Florida being in that same area, so to speak.
I don't doubt for a second that there's not something weird in Florida. It just seems like of all the places in the United States, Florida seems to be the prime territory to have all sorts of weird activity.
Well, I mean, just the Everglades themselves, there's so many stories of whether it be, the chupacabra or swamp ape or piranhas or big pythons or big ass gators. The Everglades is potentially just unexplored. There's a lot of just swamplands out there that we just don't know much of.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely possibility that there could be some kind of big alligator or the supposed swamp lizard monster that have been seen in there, or the like humanoid lizard looking people, because there's just a lot in there, and the swamps, they go from a couple feet to like, I think like 20, 30 feet deep in some of these parts, and it's a very unexplored place and a lot of area to hide and be in.
With the Everglades basically being and I don't know the correct term, a hot spot, I guess, because you have all sorts of animals and you have like is a completely different ecosystem with the swamps and everything compared to like most parts up here. So you have in the northern parts of like California and obviously Oregon, Washington, all those, you have the big forests. So that makes sense to where if there was a big ape, it'd be up in there. But if you look at most primates, as far as not human primates, but other primates, they all seem to be more tropical. They all
Yeah.
seem to be, so it makes more sense to me that if something like that were to exist, it would be down in Florida in the swamps and everything because it's more of a tropical region compared to Canada area where it's cold.
Yeah. I mean, they do have monkeys that have took up living in a certain part of Florida, so they can survive in that habitat.
Yeah. It's strange to me that when it comes to Sasquatch and the skunk ape and where each part of the country has their own little names for them. And they all have their own little variations too. So it makes you wonder if these things really are out there, if they're offshoots or if they've just evolved a little bit differently based off the climate they're in. So I would think that the ones that live up in the colder weather have a lot more thicker fur than the ones you'd be down in the hot weather.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've seen a lot of things of like Bigfoot, and you can't tell me that there's not any kind of truth to all the stories, because you're talking about that Native American talked about it in the West Coast, they talked about it in the Midwest, and they talked about it as far as some of the places in the Eastern Coast. And I even think they've had mentions of it with the Seminoles and the Creek Indians in Florida. They have some kind of wild man or hairy man, or some kind of giant hairy ape-like creature that they deal with. Now, are they the same species or whatever? There has to be some kind of truth, or there has to be something to that,
Mm-hmm.
because just all these different tribes of Indians on different parts of the continent are talking about the same creature with a lot of common, but the little different bits. So it's really kind of hard for me to believe that there's not something out there that kind of gave them that the stories to make these legends.
Yeah. There's way too much evidence, far as not so much physical evidence, but like the evidence through the past, like the cave paintings and the stories you hear from the Native Americans. And it's not just here, it's all over the world.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know in China they have some kind of creature that they talked about that lives in the bamboo forest. And then you have the supposed abominable snowman or the Yeti that lives in I forgot what mountain range, but
The
it's
Himalayas.
Nepal,
Yeah.
where Everest is. They have all these different types of creatures that have a lot of commonality, that they're about anywhere from 6 to 8 feet tall, and weighing anywhere from 400 to 800 pounds, and they have hair. Some it's black, some of it's white, some of it's a darker brown, some might have a smell to it. It's just too much coincidence to not have something. Maybe it was just some kind of species that died off long enough. I don't know, but it's just so many stories out there that you read about that there's got to be some kind of truth to it.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt for a second there's not some sort of genuine truth to these stories, just because, again, they're too widespread, especially there's so much gray area when it comes to certain topics, when it, like with cryptids.
It is.
I feel like, especially when you're dealing with Sasquatch or these dog men or anything like that, there's like a supernatural vibe to them. If you listen to a lot of the stories that people are telling, like some people believe like for a Bigfoot, it's just a flesh and blood ape. Well, then you hear stories of how it just vanishes, and some people see like little flying orbs around with it. Some people have actually talked about how it speaks to them telepathically.
Yeah, yeah. I've and yeah, some say that they can teleport. Some say that they're not there to harm them, but they're more of warning them of other creatures that might want to do them harm. It's just so many different things. I guess you just don't know what they intend to do or whatever until you're in the situation, so to speak.
Yeah. Again, to me, like I said, it's all bizarre because it could be so many different things. But until I see one in person, I've got a 9-foot tall one in my backyard right now, but he's just a metal cutout. So he's up hanging around my pole barn. I used to have it up towards the front of the road so when people drive by they could see it, but the welds broke off on it, so he's now just bolted to my pole barn out back.
There you go. He's there to scare off the crows.
Yeah.
No, I know it sparked a lot about being a photographer and mainly doing shoots, but I don't know how to explain this, but my actual, for a couple of years, my actual regular job was being a night security patrol officer, and I guess my property, or where I was stationed at, was an Indian burial ground. It literally, I was right across the street from one of the casinos, and so the neighborhood I was at, I have heard of. There is a black Florida panther there. I have found evidence of a lot of bones and arrowheads, and have heard rumors from the people that have been living in that area for a long time that I meet, that this was some kind of, I wouldn't say it's like a burial ground, but it's some kind of scarce ground for hunting or whatever. And a lot of weird things would happen at night. It just, especially if I'm in part of the, because they were still developing the land. They had one part of it done, and then I had to kind of go check the construction site because they had a lot of equipment and, this supplies and stuff there. And I'll have to walk through that, everything. And I'll be there and I'll just be walking by. I'll kind of feel some weird going on. and then there'll be something splashing in the water, and I have my flashlight, and it might just be like a frog or something. But then there is this one night that, just a lot of weird things would happen. I was on my patrol, and there was like an outdoor cat that was really cool. I just called him Street Cat because he'll just show up, and then, after a few nights, he started liking me, so I can sit there and pet him or whatever. And I was, doing my rounds, and he shows up, and I just start petting him. And I don't know if it was a him or a her. It was a cat. The cat liked me, so I was just like, yeah, it's like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm like petting the cat because I got nothing better to do. And the cat just like freaked out one time, and just like, as I was petting it, bit my finger and then like ran off. And then I just started hearing like something that's running through the grass, and the tall grass kind of near the construction site. It looked like someone was jumping or whatever. It was really weird. I didn't really see it, but like I can hear it,
Yeah.
And that same night, I was, because they say that animals kind of have, seem like they have a sixth sense when it comes to, supernatural stuff. They kind of have a feeling whether they smell or they see it differently or whatever. That, like I said, it's all the same night, and I was still patrolling, probably like a half hour later near the construction site, and all of a sudden I just see like a squirrel. He starts running across in the tall grass. At first I was like, I just see like, green eyeballs running through, and I'm like, all right, what is this? Turned out to be a squirrel, and the squirrel jumps up into a tree, and it starts acting very erratic, and it's like, it looked like it's doing push-ups, and it's like making the like little, sound that it does, little squeaks or whatever. And I felt that it was looking at me, but I felt like it was looking past me, and like something behind me or whatever, as it was freaking out. Now, I'm sitting there talking to other officers, or, the other security personnel in my company, and they're making, some of them are making fun of me. One guy's was like, yo, I told you, all right? He told me about the supposed big black Florida panther that showed up and started killing things or whatever on the property, and this and that. And, it was like a whole night where I was just, saying stuff, and I got made fun of by my some of my coworkers, everything else. Well, I didn't necessarily see anything. I just know the weird things were happening, and it's funny is I eventually did leave that job, and I still kept in contact with people that were working there. About a year after I left, I got a phone call. I happened to be awake, and the guy that took over for me, I knew him. He called me, and he goes, remember about like a year ago when all that weird stuff was happening or whatever? Do you like know what it looked like, whatever? Because some weird stuff is going on right now. And he's all like, now I believe you. I just kind of, thought that like maybe you're tired because it's early in the morning or whatever. But like, dude, I could have sworn I saw some like weird looking, he said it was like a gray, it was very tiny. He said it may have been like 2 to 3 feet tall, and it was like a gray looking, like, lizard thing, and it had some spikes. And, the best thing he saw is what they think the chupacabra looked like. And it was like running around and, making noises, and it just gave me some really bad vibes, man. So I was just asking if that's kind of like the same thing happened. Like, look, I never saw anything. Sure, you're a little bit more, into it than I am. But like, yeah, dude, I'm not lying. And, he's like, yeah, there's a lot of barking going on. Like, animals were like being quiet all of a sudden and stuff like that, he said, and he was like, I'm sorry I was making fun of you that night, kind of thing. But yeah, some weird stuff was going on as I was working there. Not anything I couldn't deal with. But after a while, I guess I just kind of get used to. You're like, hey, I'm walking through here, I'm not doing anything, don't bother me, I won't bother you, kind of thing. You kind of develop like a repertoire or whatever. That makes sense.
Yeah, there's all sorts of weird things that no one ever really knows about. Like, it could be normal, could be paranormal. Again, who's to say one way or the other what it could be?
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not saying that like anything. I'm just saying that, sometimes, I do know when you're petting a cat, like it gets overstimulated, it might attack you. it bite you, letting you know like whatever, But
Yeah.
now the whole thing with the squirrel, I don't know. Maybe the squirrel was, doing like a mating call for all I know. I don't know anything about squirrels, but I'm just saying like weird things like that were kind of happening all in one night,
Mm-hmm. That is strange. It all happened in the same instance.
Yeah, and you know what? It could, for all I know, it could have been a coincidence. You know what I mean? It's just that one night they're just like, hey, you know what? Things are gonna be crazy for you.
So I'm trying to rationalize it in like a sense to make sense of it, but again, I'm no expert. I'm just a guy with a microphone. So anything that I try and rationalize doesn't mean it's
Yeah,
one thing or the other.
it's one of those things. Like I've been places where this is another time I was actually camping with friends, and I was north of the Tampa area, at one of these parks, and it's been known. The county I was at is known as like a drug haven. There's a lot of, whether it's meth heads or just crack fiends or whatever. I think now the new thing is fentanyl is like the big drug now, but there's a lot of. It's a very rural county that had a big drug problem, or drug users or drug abusers, whatever you want to call it. And the certain park we were at, I did not see anything that happened, but I have seen the evidence that they're talking about. I went with a big group of friends. We kind of do this thing called foam fighting, and we were having one of our campouts for the weekend. Well, one night, some of the younger kids that are, kind of in the area, they know about there was quote unquote Satan worshippers that would go to the park, and they're able to be in the middle of the woods and make, their symbol and stuff like that. And they were supposedly like killed like a squirrel or a raccoon or whatever to kind of use its blood. That it was supposedly found by the park rangers, and they kicked them all out or whatever. So kind of going on the same time we were there. I do know that some of the people that are with that might have been a little bit more susceptible to accepting supernatural stuff started making themselves feel sick because they thought weird things were going on during this night. The only thing I can say that I can kind of confirm with that, it was the coyotes in the area were very active that night, and they were surrounding my camp or whatever, so to speak, and I had to help stay up in the camp because literally all night you're hearing the coyotes, which sound like a freaking child crying when they howl or talk to each other. So that in itself is just kind of adding to what's already being put out there, the energy. And it was I couldn't fall asleep, because you're hearing like, it sounds like a baby crying, to your left and then to your right. And then all of a sudden you're hearing it from behind you, and the coyotes got really close to the camp too, which was just weird because usually coyotes won't come near a big human population, but for some reason they must have been either very hungry or, the cultists out there like really kind of like, were getting them agitated or putting in the energy to make them more overly aggressive, but they came really close. I was almost I was lucky that a friend of mine came and saved me because I started dozing off where I was at, and it was literally like they said at least 10 feet from me, ready to attack, and he shot at it to scare it off, and then that really woke me up.
Yeah, I don't.
Now, like I said, it was all the same night as all this other stuff was going on. Like I said, it could have been a coincidence. I didn't know if what they were telling me was true or there's rumors. Did I see stuff like that kind of around? I didn't see any dead animals with like blood, kind of sputed and whatever. But I did see like weird little rocks and formations and stuff like that. But I didn't see what they were telling me,
Sometimes it's hard to see things in the dark anyways, but I also wonder if some people don't just like to screw around with other people too, especially if they know you're out there on your own or doing whatever you're doing. It's like, I think people have a way of trying to toy with people, just think it's fun. poking fun and whatever else.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not saying that I haven't done that to people, But I mean, I don't know. I'm just talking about stories out there that this things happened coincidental. Whether it was supernatural or not, I don't know. I just, just things at the time just kind of all happened at once, and it's just like, all right, this is something's going on.
I know there are some people out there that believe that coincidences don't exist. There are no coincidences. So
Yeah, if coincidences didn't exist, then I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I'm just saying.
Yeah, a lot of people think that everything happened for reasons, and I'm not here to disagree with that or agree with it. I mean, I have no idea.
I mean, I do believe things do happen for a reason, but then coincidences just kind of happen, like when I meet somebody that can help me, especially in the whole, as a photographer, I worked a lot in different nightclubs, and it was just a coincidence that the one night I was, working at one nightclub, that someone from another nightclub or does another event in another city, in the next city over, he wanted to hire me. He just happened to be hanging out with people that night. Is it a coincidence or was it supposed to happen? It just, he was there, we met, It just had to be a coincidence that we were there at the same night. Maybe it was supposed to happen of us meeting. Yeah, so it can go hand in hand.
Yeah. Well, so this is getting to about that hour mark where I try and get to the episodes marks. Do you, I know you said you do podcasting and stuff like that too. Do you have anything where they can come check you out, like any links or anything for the audience out there to check out?
Yeah, if you want to check out my own podcast that I do, it's called the Lessons Made Podcast, and I'm on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. You can find me online. Either look me up at Leslie Madewell on all social medias, or Madewell Art Photography is all my photography stuff. Just type that into Google and I'll pop up. So that's where you can find me.
You can also send me a link in an email, and I'll put all those all your links and information in the show notes, so they can just go right in there and find it easier.
Yeah, of course, I will do that. No problem.
Yeah, Leslie, I appreciate you coming on here tonight and talking with me. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate it, too. Thank you for having me on. It's been fun talking about things that happened years ago that I haven't thought about in probably like 10 years.
Yeah. So sometimes the things that happen, we try and forget about them, but they don't always stay hidden.
That is
forgotten.
True.
Yeah. But yeah, we're going to roll on out here. So again, thanks to Leslie, and thanks for listening. Remember, the truth lies in the stories we share, the connections we make. Stay curious, stay open-minded. Thank you all for joining us on this journey, and until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep exploring the unknown. Good night, everyone.